from Jane Bond BBQ today. How are you doing?
Sup, Mark? I'm great. Thank you,
Awesome.
and great to be here. Thanks for
Yeah.
the invite. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So
Yeah.
this is, I think, our third. Well, I know it's our third podcast where we've added the audio and the video to it. So, hopefully you don't get nervous in front of a camera like I do.
Well, you let me know when you watch my
Yeah.
Fire Masters episode.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that one. I was laughing. I was listening to, because we did a podcast together probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because just remembering about that. But when you and I were connecting on email beforehand, because me being an idiot, I was just calling you Jane constantly. So if I call you Jane, it's because I'm an idiot. So.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But you, in my defense, were calling me Matt in the emails.
I was calling you Matt.
Yeah. So
we kind of got each other. We're level.
Yeah. So if we go by the wrong names, it's all good. We mean no harm.
Just a fun game that we play.
That's right. So Jane Bond BBQ. Let's just kind of talk about how it kind of started and what it's kind of morphed into, because it seems like you're taking on more and more all the time. First of all, let's start with the name. Where does the name Jane Bond come from?
Jane Bond BBQ. So it resonated when I started this food truck 10. I say 10. It's probably getting on to be 11 years ago. That happens, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to think about what does kind of characterize me, and the style of kind of cooking that I really enjoy. It tends to be really bold flavors, spicy. And I wanted to kind of have a femme fatale-ness about the brand as well. I was kind of, envisioning how are we going to build this brand? Because it's, I was always looking at the big picture. And Jane Bond just kind of fell into place.
I love it. And it's Southern barbecue, right?
It's what I would call is a kind of a fusion, an international fusion. Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't really subscribe to rules, which is a little bit like me.
Good call. Because one of the things, as I talk to people about barbecue specifically, is there's a lot of different philosophies and theories, and people really geek out on barbecue. I don't know if you've ever met Graham Sherman, but
yes.
I think he geeks out on everything he does. But
I think so.
There's a level. So there's just certain ones. So I was curious if there was an area that you kind of gravitate towards. Is it Southern, or you just are all over the map? Kind
of. Like I would say, we're kind of really drawn to the simplicity of more kind of Texas style barbecue.
Okay, gotcha. You were sharing a story with me last time we chatted when you were walking in. Do you do a lot of do you visit the South, and do you visit different barbecue places to get a sense of what they're all about? Because the story that you were telling me was you walked into the place and just the way they greeted you was so friendly and so intense, and you're like, I want that vibe as part of our restaurant.
Yeah, 100%. It's been our intention to do a Southern tour every year, but the last couple of years have not really been accessible. The goal is to take a couple of our top team members and a couple of our favorite fans, and take them down every year. So we had the opportunity to do a barbecue tour when we built our last food truck. And it was great. So that story that I was telling you about happened to be in Texas at Jackson Street Barbecue. And we walked through the door, and this just character that this is a character that just kind of it embraced everything that we just realized we wanted to do. And she just had this like, hey, welcome, how you doing kind of thing intro, right? We're like, that just has to be a thing. So that's been part of what we try to instill in our brand, is that Southern greeting, that hospitality that kind of take you back when you walk through the door. Yeah, no, absolutely. So you started out as a food truck, and so how have you evolved? You obviously have one brick and mortar restaurant. So what made you decide to go from food truck to an actual brick and mortar restaurant? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the impossibility in this climate, in this place in Canada where we have winter more than half of the year. It's almost impossible to make this into a full-time business, right? So I think it was looking forward into developing a brand that was growable and expandable, scalable. Right. And so speaking of the scalability of it then, you're opening up a second location? Yes, the woodwork the woodwork says so. We literally are just tying up that lease this week, and we've made a very subtle Instagram announcement that was
Nice.
picked up pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're about 2 months, I think, into until we open.
Wow. One of the things, I have a huge respect for people that own restaurants. And what I find interesting is some people, when they look at, if you go into a restaurant and someone who has no experience in running a restaurant, working in a restaurant, they'll look at it, and some people actually think it looks easy. They're like, yeah, we should start a restaurant. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Because to me, it just seems there's so many moving parts, and it just seems so complicated. But then you add barbecue to it, and even as a restaurant, I feel like barbecue is on the more challenging side of that. So why did you choose barbecue?
I think I'm naturally drawn to the path of most resistance.
Yeah.
I really like challenges. I've excelled or tried to excel in most things that I invest myself into. And so when I noticed this trend of barbecue becoming a thing, I thought, hey, what a great opportunity, to make a mark and to jump in on this kind of wave of something neat. I fell in love with the culture and the history when we went down to the southern states, and that just really felt like it resonated with me. And then there was that thing that I just had to master. I was like, this really tough muscle that has two muscles adjoined that, very few people can do very well. And then even if they do it very well, can they then get it to a plate very well through
Right.
the challenges of not having 200 people lined up at your door every day? It's extremely challenging. And I said, that sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not a matter of, okay, you're open whatever your hours are and you're cooking. With barbecue, it's an all day thing. So whether you're open or not, like you're either prepping or you're, like it's that just seems challenging.
It's literally a lifestyle,
Yes.
My wife Adrienne, God bless her soul, I've trained her to take over the smoking of our business, and she might be better than me.
Yeah.
Don't ever tell her that I said that. No, she's really taken it on and taken a passion for it. But she's in at whatever time is required. You talked about that 11 to 7. We were talking about Bust By, how they've modified their hours.
Yeah.
That's one of the tricks of having a barbecue restaurant is that smoker doesn't subscribe to a shift.
Yes.
It's done when it's done. And if you have, a 10-pound brisket and then you have a 20-pound brisket, well, one of them is going to be really overdone if you pull them all off at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you really love what you do, you go in at 4 a.m. and you pull that 10-pound brisket. And that's the art of what we do.
Yeah. So opposite of what my dad did growing up, which was put everything on. No matter how you want your steak done, it's like it all goes on at the same time. It all comes off at the same time.
Right. So the thin one or the thick one, all the same.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about barbecue competitions because that's another kind of I don't know, you got to be a sucker for punishment because, again, it just looks like so much work. You won the 2019 Barley and Smoke, right?
Correct, yeah.
And then you're also on Firemaster, which I want to talk about specifically. But do you do a lot of competitions?
No, and when I do, it's usually I've been like, hey, come and do this, please, it's only because of lack of time.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it when you're doing the competitions?
I really enjoy competing.
Yeah.
I guess the short answer is I really love it because I love to win. I love to, to try to be the best.
Yeah.
But when you're for example, when I went on the Firemaster show, I had 2 weddings in one day, the day before I left, and 2 weddings in one day, the day when I came back. And that's kind of how that month was. So just the lack of time to prepare makes you, it makes you a little nervous,
Yeah. So when you say you're catering these events, is what you're saying, really?
Just slammed busy, right?
Yeah.
Until the moment my wife pushed me on the plane and said, okay, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess I am.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that experience because I think when we're watching it as an audience, I don't think we can truly appreciate what that day looks like or what that experience looks like. So walk us through being a part of Firemasters. What was that like?
So it was, it was like just extremely intense. You know, it's. I think what perceptions you might have, you know, because it's on TV. Oh, they prep you, and you know, oh, you know, you've got so much time to, you know, figure out what you're going to do. None of that is true.
Yeah.
Not on the show, anyways.
Yeah.
So it was really intimidating. You
Yeah.
know, had never been on TV in that capacity. And you know, and kind of being really obsessed with Jane Bond, you know, outside realm is not often, you know, in my vision, right? So I really had to put a hat on when I went and did that, and yeah, but it was a super cool experience. The day was very long. It was an 11-hour day.
And is it all shot in one day?
All one day, that
Wow.
show. Right. So, yeah, and you're kind of, you know, my experience was you know, have your dressing room or your dressing area, and you're kind of in the dark a lot. You don't really know what's happening when. You're just kind of waiting.
Yeah.
You know, so the suspense is intense.
So who were the judges when you were on there? Because Nicole has been a judge in the past. Was she there when you were there?
No, she wasn't, but local chef Connie D'Souza was.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and I dare say she was a big part of the, you know, the bridge to putting me on the show. She asked me to apply.
Nice.
So she's love you, and thank you so much, Connie. We really do love you at Jane Bond. But yeah, so and then Chef Dale McKay and Chef Eddie Jackson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that was kind of a fun Southern twist for to have Chef Eddie Jackson there.
Yeah, no kidding, no pressure, hey?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you leverage that? Because I think it's important for, you know, as a business, to, when you're doing these things, to obviously leverage it so that people get to know who you are as a person, but hopefully it can build your business, right? So did you see a correlation there when you came back from it? Were you able to kind of promote yourself as being featured on Fire Masters, and did it help your business?
Yes, it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah.
It's not that the show airs and wow, you have again 200 people at the door.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Not in our case, anyways. It is definitely, you have to roll it into a marketing theme,
Right.
sheme, whatever you want to call it. And seeing as like that's me, like I am our marketing team at this time. It's slow. It's, you know, you have to kind of strategize how to use this asset.
Yeah.
And how to make it work for your brand.
Absolutely. Okay, well, here's something maybe we can use to market you. No, we're gonna have you as an ambassador for the Jasper Beer and Spirits Festival this year, which is rad.
Yes.
It was funny because I was talking to my contact at Jasper Park Lodge is a friend of mine, Robin, and so we were chatting about what we wanted to do this year. Obviously, as it's a cliche, but you want to be, you know, bigger and better every year, right? So one of the things that I always like to do is, you know, how can we feature chefs, and then what type of chefs do we want to have there, right? So Alberta Pork is a big sponsor of ours at that particular event, and it's the same weekend as the Super Bowl. So we were kind of thinking about it from that perspective. My friend Peter, who owns, he's one of the owners of Muley's in Edmonton, he does really cool charcuterie. So I was like, okay, that's one aspect of kind of the pork, Alberta Pork kind of story. But what, you know, to me, tailgating and football is all about barbecue too, right? So
it's a good fit, yeah.
And then I was thinking, okay, I want someone from Calgary, and then you just seem like a natural fit. So first of all, thank you for saying yes to joining us.
Yeah, it sounds like a pile of fun.
Yeah, and yeah, so we're gonna be, you know, there'll be seminars, there'll be a whole bunch of stuff. So when you do stuff like that, are you comfortable in front of an audience doing like those seminars, and or is that something you kind of got to work up to?
I'm very comfortable in front of an audience, especially when it's kind of like maybe from like a coaching or like a leadership aspect.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay, so locally, I think you're into the beer scene pretty good here locally. Would you say?
We love our local beer. Yeah,
I was
defo.
chatting with Blake from Cold Garden about you a little while ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I think she's a fan of ours. I know they're a fan of yours." So
yeah.
What is the local scene? So let's talk about it from, you know, how do you fit into, say, the local beer scene, and then is there a local, barbecue community? Because it seems like it just keeps growing. But maybe talk about how you're part of those communities.
Yeah. So, with the local craft beer scene, we're constantly making friends and trying out different craft beers on our taps at the restaurant. We've got Christina from Exhale Brew Co. is a really good friend of ours who we've, loved to support through her 2 years of growth. Actually, her anniversary, 2-year anniversary is coming up shortly, so we'll be hosting her party.
Oh, wow.
And just like finding fun collabs, right? So Cold Garden's been a big part of that. I think their brand is very much like ours in that it's, loud and fun and sassy. And so we've done a lot of fun things together, from catering to, we did the barley and smoke competition together and we won in one of those categories. They've come and done events at our spot. And actually I had a Fire Masters launch viewing party at Cold Garden.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was super fun. So yeah, that's absolutely our mandate when it comes to beer, supporting those local brands, from the small ones that are in or around our restaurant, to across the city. So,
yeah, no, that's really cool. And then what about barbecue? Because it seems like, again, I'm an outsider on a lot of these things, but it seems like there's a lot of really cool, innovative new barbecue restaurants opening. So I always ask this of breweries because there's a part of you that's competition, but then there's a part where maybe you can collaborate and there is a community. So
yeah,
how would you describe the barbecue community here in Calgary?
In my experience so far, it's been a bit aloof maybe. And I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's because of the amount of work that goes into that kind of a business.
Right.
That, you're just so tied to your business or you're so tied to growing your business. We've been, I would say that our biggest connection is, down with Big Sky. I think they're a lot like us in terms of that, roadside barbecue shack. But yeah, I have to say that, it hasn't been a strong connection. I've had this idea of having a barbecue competition in our parking lot at the restaurant.
Right.
And I still want to do this, but I think the last 2 years people have just been focused on surviving.
Yes.
But, I think we'll see more of that.
Yeah. And so when we talked last, it was during COVID.
Yes.
How has it been, coming out of COVID? Have you seen, I think you mentioned like your catering has increased quite a bit. Have you seen kind of a positive trajectory? Is there light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing right now?
Yeah, 100%. It's just huge. It's like a complete game changer. For two years, it was just literally surviving from day to day, week to week, working a ton of hours in order to maintain a low volume sales, low volume skilled labor, and all the challenges that come with those things, rising costs, right? So this year has been a game changer, and that catering has come back after 2 years of having, that's 50% of our business. Yeah. Right. So that has allowed us to look at the growth that we were planning to do 2 years ago.
And so, yeah, the amount of challenges are crazy. And, so COVID was one, and the uncertainty, obviously, but even coming out of that, like you said, the rise of costs, so like inflation, I imagine trying to put a menu together can be stressful. Staffing issues, I think, are affecting a lot of restaurants and stuff. What do you do to kind of overcome some of those challenges?
I try to be foresightful. With regards to the labor challenge, it's one that we've struggled with, like coming from a food truck operation. You don't always have the affordability of full-time staff, right? So you're constantly always thinking about how do I survive? How do I get the business needs met without having a full roster of staff? So it's kind of always been an adaptation I've grown the business with. And when we built the new location, and also having traveled through the southern states and kind of seeing the different styles of barbecue, that is a very casual, often a kind of a self-service. I think we're ahead of the curve on that trend. When we built this, our recent or current location on Blackfoot Trail, we did adapt that style, and we did set up our online ordering system prior to most places because it's just what suited our business at the time. Totally. So we're kind of ahead with that, and I look at processes on the regular. It's kind of where my skill set is. I'm kind of nerd. That's my nerd out thing, you know. How can I make this smoother, easier, more manageable by one person rather than three? Yeah. Right. So those are things that we're just constantly evolving.
And last time we chatted, one of the things that I found interesting. So you start as a food truck, and you're wearing every hat, right? And so you're doing all the cooking, all the marketing, anything that needs to be done, it's you that's doing it. As you grow, you really have to give that over to people. Is that something that's easy for you, or is that something that you really have to be conscious of? Because in order to grow, you can't keep doing everything. You have to be. And you were mentioning like your wife is now taking care of the kitchen. I can't imagine in the background that's necessarily a smooth transition, because there's the stress of wanting to be there. But as a business owner, are you able to kind of let go of things?
It's been a slow process. And I think it's been like one of like, I have to figure out how to communicate the things that are in my head effectively, because this brain is not how most brains work. Hence why I was able to get to a point, but it comes to a stop, and it comes with this insane amount of stress.
Right.
And wear and tear on your mentally, physically, emotionally, right? So yes, there was a point where I had to look at the assets, which are my business, and what that foundation is made of, and break it down and figure out how to systemize it. And how to become a better leader and trainer.
Yeah.
And with, when working with your wife, sometimes 90 hours in a week and going home and, doing that whole thing, that's challenging.
Yeah.
And so we've both had to work hard in order to improve our business style communication, right? Because to be business partners and to be, wives are two different things. And if they start to bleed over, it's not healthy.
And it's challenging. Like, I know I was in my kind of like former life, I was in business with family, and there's that, you start off saying, we're going to separate business from when we see each other outside of business, and you have to have that separation. Way easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because if you're pissed off at somebody at work, it's hard to be like, come home and have like this like fresh set of eyes and be like, oh no, this isn't the person I'm pissed at. This is someone different.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible. So I think communication is key, and my big thing is it's been getting to like meetings every week, right?
Yeah.
We have to have meetings every week. Like that's just the foundation of like our growth and our communication. Yeah. So it's been a struggle to kind of get that through, like just being so busy and pulled in many different directions, but we're starting to stabilize.
So, okay, this is because it started out as your vision, right? As you get more people and as your wife gets more involved, is it hard for you to let them be a part of the vision? So maybe the way they do something isn't the way you would do it, but then letting them do it the way they would do. Do you know what I'm saying?
I 100% do. Yeah. I think I'm very adaptable, and I appreciate. I don't want to do all the roles.
Yeah.
I just have a certain standard that needs to be met.
Right.
So if somebody has a way that I had, like literally I'll have, somebody come in for a stage, which is essentially, you're donating your time so that we may see what your skill set is.
Right.
And they'll do something in a way I hadn't thought of, and I'll be like, God damn, I didn't think of that. All right, that's now a spec.
Yeah.
Right. And it could be something so simple that you just didn't even think about. Yeah. Right. So no, totally love to have, collaboration from all places, but it has to meet to a certain spec and guideline.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So we talk about the challenges, and in a good day in restaurants, there's challenges, and then what we've been through over the last few years has been insane. Where does the optimism come from? Like when you look at everything and the challenges, to me, it seems like there could be days where it seems like very difficult to overcome. So where does your optimism come from?
Well, Adrian would say 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And I do recharge very quickly. I think naturally I'm the type of person who wakes up with the want to succeed and thrive, and overcome challenges. But that's not without fail. 3 weeks ago I found myself past Creston in a place called Grey Creek. And I took the dogs and I said, Kate, we're driving, we're doing this, we need a break. And I recently have been engaging in a mentorship program. And so I had a meeting there while I was, on the lake in this beautiful little hut, we'll say.
Yeah.
But I was brought to tears, and one of the things that I expressed was, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And that thought probably filters through it once a month,
right.
but then I cry, and then I have myself a good sleep.
Yeah.
And I wake up and I really look at what are the staples behind that statement? Like, what is it that I need to address?
Yeah.
So that's just how my brain works, I guess.
That's interesting. Because sometimes when I'll go for a walk if I'm feeling flustered and frustrated, and it's kind of like when you're at that moment where you almost are ready to give up, it feels like the next day you have some sort of insight. It's like your brain's trying to process, and then it comes up with an answer that kind of motivates you to keep going.
Hey, you just said it. Like, that's totally it. And there's that processor going, right?
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great way.
Are you aware? Because what I've become aware of is that I'm aware of the process. So when I'm frustrated, I'm like, okay, I need to actually go through this process because there's going to be something that comes out of it. Have you been through that process enough times to know that, okay, this is just the process. This is how I come up with creative ideas, I guess, you know?
I think I have. I was watching a TED Talk that spoke to the idea that, there are original thinkers, I think is what the term was, in that they often tend to be procrastinators. But that the procrastination is actually, it's a processing. It's a process by where, like you just said, something is evolving, and then all of a sudden it will dawn on you. I think that what I have learned is that I carry a great amount of frustration in like what I can't affect. And so I have to manage that on the daily. However, I know when to take space.
Yeah.
Is what I'm starting to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you need to be out of your business to some degree to give you a perspective, right? And so people that are in their business all the time, they aren't able to step back. They don't have that time to kind of take a real, just get a perspective of what it's all about. So
yeah, or even that the business is not the end all be all. It is, there's like we talked about balance, right? It's finding the way to have a balance, whatever that means to you, is super important to the growth of your business.
Yeah, and to your sanity as a human being.
Well, you are the biggest asset, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be sane.
Well, and the thing is balance doesn't have to be 50-50. Like balance some days is like, hey, I'm going to be full on today. It's going to be an 18-hour day. But, some days there's, hey, my phone's off today. I'm not answering phone calls. So that's the balance. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be 50% working today and 50%.
Yeah, it never looks like that for me. But more of that you described.
Yeah. So, okay, so when you do step back from work, what do you do? Do you have, is getting out to the mountains important to you? Like you mentioned, you're in BC there. What do you do when you're taking time?
Cleaning is like, it's one of those kind of simple things that brings you kind of connection with your, with your outside of business brain, I find.
Yeah.
So just being home.
Yeah.
Just being home and feeling that like the normalcy.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. Like Adrian and I just recently went on a trip to New Brunswick, and we thought, we want to go support the Maritimes and, spend our vacation money there, and, maybe we'll find a place that we want to buy a home. And so we ripped around there for a week, and we came home. We were like, God, it would have been nice to just be home for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just being home. Going to the gym is like something, I used to run an hour a day, and that came from, playing soccer. I played soccer at a really high level when I was younger. Time hasn't really allowed that recently, but getting to the gym is one of those things that is important for me. So it's on my agenda as I get to have more spare time. But outside of that, music. It's home. I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of out of travel. For me now, where I get my recharge is just quiet.
Nice. You mentioned you were in a mentorship program. So were you the mentor or the mentee in that relationship?
Mentee.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's a word. Is mentee a word? I think
it is a word,
because
they kept using this word, and I'm like, it sounds really weird, but I guess I'm the mentee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you had an opportunity to be a mentor? It seems to me that in your position, that might be an opportunity.
It totally is. I think that right now I'm happy to have mentorship.
Yeah.
Because when you're at the top of a business, and you're trying to be the vision and the direction for it, it's challenging to be just that on your own.
Yeah.
Right. And so carving out some of that vision or being able to bounce ideas off is super important right now for me. But I think having the ability to provide that back would be lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm lucky enough to have a couple mentors, and I went for a walk with one on Monday. And just to be able to kind of get their perspective and kind of is nice. Not to put you on the spot, but while being mentored, have any books been recommended to you? It's how I love getting like business books and stuff like that.
Not so far. It's new. I'm actually,
okay.
I've had 3 sessions.
Yeah.
I was just referred to this by Ava at the Chocolate Lab to this program. So not so far. It's been more of the onboarding and tell us your story and you know, where are you going.
Nice.
But even having time to read sounds lovely.
Well, when we reconnect in Jasper, you'll have to give me a book recommendation.
Okay. You got it.
So just looking at everything that you've accomplished over the course of, what'd you say, 11 years now that you've been, since you started the food truck? Going
on 11 years, yeah.
When you wake up in the morning, what are you most passionate about when it comes to work?
Well, recently my role has shifted to business development and kind of 75% fashion. I studied advertising, and that's kind of probably what's always driven my love for having a business, is being able to kind of affect the growth of it.
Right.
And that's the piece. I wake up and I've developed a team in India and Pakistan, and who are doing my web development. We're working on a new website and graphic design. So I get up at 4 a.m. because that's 5 p.m. for them, right? And I connect with them and I do that piece of work. And just throughout the day, there's so many touch points of growing a business like mine. That you can't even get to all of them in a day.
Right.
But that's what I wake up thinking about.
That's awesome.
It's
awesome.
Fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You need that, something in the morning that gets you excited. So, and it's nice when you have a team, because then you're not as overwhelmed. It's, you're always going to be thinking about all of the things, but knowing that there's one area that you can really kind of focus on is
if you
nice.
Can get it off your plate. Yeah. It took me a year to build this team.
Oh yeah.
I'd hired 3 companies locally, 3 different companies for 3 months. It costs, it costs a lot of money to try a company out, we'll say. And then it ended up being that I had to kind of piece together my own skill sets, right?
Yeah.
And that's going really well right now, so it's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time. It's fun to connect. I'm super excited for Jasper. It's going to be so much fun, and you're gonna love it.
I haven't skied. I just saw your email, and you're like, "We should go skiing." I didn't respond. I'm like, "I haven't skied in 20 years."
Yeah,
but I'm down. I'm down.
Oh yeah, no, and we have the only advice I would say when you go skiing is, so Trevor from our team, ignore him. Don't follow him, because he just goes right for the trees. And I'm pretty sure his eyesight's going, because he hits a lot of trees.
Noted.
But hopefully he'll never hear this. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm excited to do the project with you in Jasper, and good luck in the new location.
Thank you so much.
Which just seems crazy to me, but
yes, it is.
Yeah, congrats. Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah,
it's always great to see you, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.